My story, part one. And it's in small print, so I might not be able to see you, but I'll see the words. I was born on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1943 in Val-d'Or, Quebec, in my parents' house on 16th Street across from the Lefebvre Hotel. I know that we moved into a small house that my parents purchased on 17th Street when I was about 2 years old. The house was a two-room shack that my dad repaired and added on some rooms that as time went by. The family grew and they could afford to do a little bit more. One of my early recollections is when my parents decided to add a basement, one bedroom and a bathroom into the kitchen, living room, and the three rooms that were already part of the house. The first floor was one living room in the front part of the house, one very small bathroom, toilet, and sink, and a kitchen. The second floor had two small bedrooms in the front part of the house and one slightly bigger room in the back with a trap door to the stairs. In 1955, we poured the cement with four walls that would eventually become the basement, and construction went on for a long time, until we had added one bedroom and one small storage room on the upstairs floor, one nice and complete bathroom downstairs, and a large entrance in the rear part of the house. The tiny bathroom became the access to the basement. Over the next year or so was spent digging the space for the basement. That's a tough way to build a basement, and I shared the actually original church that's just up the road. They built it many, many years ago. They added on to it. They had a housing added on the back of it. I think they added on about 3 times, and then they dug the basement. It's always a tough way to go, dig the basement after, but it didn't come easy. They dug the basement. Over the next years, it was so spent digging in the space for the basement. I remember that the ground was extremely hard and had to be broken up with a pick before we could shovel it, and then shove it out through the small window in the basement walls so it could be picked up again and loaded in a trailer, then taken to a dumping area at the end of the street. I started school at St. Saviour's Elementary in 1949. I had to repeat grade 2 because my marks were not very good at all. In 1953, my sister, now I might not get these, you might, Regine? I just don't have the accent, being Scottish. I was sent to a boarding school at Notre Dame des Anges, just a few miles from Quebec City. My conduct was not very good, and the nuns would have preferred for me to stay at home. After the Christmas break, he's revealing here, after the Christmas break, they even sent my parents a letter asking them to send me to another school for the rest of the school year. but my parents insisted that I finish the year since they had already paid for my boarding there. The following year, they sent me to another boarding school, this time St. Hyacinthe, near Montreal. I completed the year there, and the following year I stayed home and went to the local school to complete my grade 6, 7, and 8, and part of 9. At that time, I decided I knew all there was to know and refused to go back to school and even finish the school year. So I actually did not finish grade 9 in school. From then on, I just kept going downhill to the mid-1961 when I ended up in a serious trouble with the law. I did not go, I will not go into details this time, but for the next 4 years were kind of rough on me and my parents. Sometime in mid-1965, I met Mary, who lived next door to my mom and dad's on 10th Street in Val-d'Or, Quebec. My parents had moved there from 17th Street, I think in 63 or 64. Mary and I have been together since then. Our first official meeting happened on August 22nd, 1965, and we were married on January the 8th, 1966. The Ukrainian church in Val-d'Or, we had a reception in the Polish hall where there was at least 100 invited guests. We rented a small apartment on 11th Street where we would share the bathroom with the other tenants in the house, but the rent was cheap. I was working at that time as a housing clerk at ATCO Services. I quit the job shortly after I got married because I wanted to spend as much time with my new wife as I could. He had priorities. So I came home and started looking for a job in town. I was lucky that my dad was working at the mine, Manitou Barview Mines, and had a very good reputation, so they hired me within 2 weeks after I quit my first job at ATCO Service. I stayed at that mine for 5 years until they decided to shut down because apparently they had run out of reserves. They laid off most of the for us, but they decided to continue operations for another few years after that. I'd already found another job and had no intention of going back there. I was working for Victorian Sylvester Quebec Land Surveys, and I wanted to learn the trade and decided to stay there instead of going back to the mine. So Mary said that I'm not supposed to read it all. So I won't read it all, but you might want to get a copy of this. We can make some copies. It's really quite interesting, because then he was looking for work and he applied out west, and they hired him, and so he had to have a doctor's report. They hit it up in 1976. They wanted them to get there as soon as possible. We left Val-d'Or on December 8th, 1976, with Edmonton, Alberta as our destination, where I would go into the head office of another interview before heading to Uranium City, Saskatchewan. And they told me on the phone that I would have a company house. I did not need to bring a car up there since the town was so small, I did not need one. Transportation. So the next day we got on the company plane, a DC-4, and flew northeast to Uranium City, Saskatchewan. We actually landed at El Dorado, the mine town site, just barely a quarter of a mile from the mine itself. The temperature at Uranium City that morning was something like -58. And very strong wind. I actually did not even want to get off the plane. I wanted to go back home right there and then. But they told me that the flight back to Edmonton was booked solid, and I'd have to wait at least until Monday to fly back if that's what I really wanted to do. Got off the plane, walked into the terminal in that small private airport. The place was right in the middle of the major makeover, and the power was not hooked up, and neither was the water, so I wanted to go back even more. But fortunately, the human resource man met us there at the airport, took us to our temporary residence, as he said that our permanent home in the town of Uranium City was not ready yet. Our temporary residence was a double-wide house trailer, brand new apparently, all furnished and equipped with everything that may be needed. He told us that we would give us an hour or so to get our gear, our bearings, and then he would be back to pick us up and take us into the town of Uranium City so we could pick up whatever groceries we had found missing in the cupboard and fridge, as well as show us their future hometown. We were not really impressed with the town either, very small and older and very small homes. And then he showed us our future home. He looked like it had been built rather recently and looked pretty good. Nice big yard, and budding in a small lake at the rear of the lot. Then we went to the company grocery store in town. He told us that we used to be reserved for company employees only, but that has been changed a couple years ago to serve everyone in town. From there, he took us to the Bay store, the general store, as well as the grocery store. So they had an interesting time there. They adapted this, he said, and you want to read it all. It's very interesting. They did get some flights in and out from time to time, and but I won't go into it all, because I think what we're going to do is look at some of it in pictures, and we can just